Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, I'd like to just give a bit of an update about some cases and some issues that have occurred very recently, so you can have an idea of what's going on in the immigration world in regards to appeals and so forth. So, first of all, a lot of people are wondering when USCIS offices that are currently closed will reopen. A lot of that depends on how things go, but it is currently scheduled to reopen on June 4th, uh, assuming that everything goes well and assuming that they're able to. That will be when it begins. Now, don't stop preparing everything until that time because it takes time to properly prepare what needs to be done in order to submit it anyways. Okay, so now what about cases? Well, there was a new Supreme Court case that came out 5-4, which unfortunately makes it a little easier to deport people who are applied for cancellation of removal but have committed a crime which begins what's called the stop time rule. So basically, it said that when a crime has been committed, it that triggers removability, that stops the time necessary to show physical presence for cancellation of removal, and therefore, even if they've been here the requisite number of years to apply, if they haven't done the proper time under the stop time rule, they will have missed that time and therefore they will be able to be deported. So not a real good case, but it doesn't stop you, of course, from applying for cancellation of removal. Okay, so now what about these stimulus checks that have gone out where the Trump administration has blocked the stimulus checks from coming if one of the spouses doesn't have a social security number, which would indicate they're either here unlawfully or they're here as a non immigrant or they haven't applied for a social security. So there's been a lot of U.S. citizen children that have suffered because of that, a lot of U.S. citizen spouses. And so there's been a class action lawsuit against the Trump administration for the non issuance of stimulus checks if the spouse doesn't have a social security. So I can't tell you right now what the outcome is because it's still pending. But good development, at least in that suit, that when something does seem very unfair on its face, it will end up in court. Okay, so in regards to Trump, another issue is that the administration has excluded DACA recipients and foreign students from certain grants. And so that while that's not good at this point, there's no lawsuit yet pending. However, that could be going forward depending. Okay, now, what a lot of Trump has tried to do is to get states to issue rules on proving that they're a U.S. citizen in order to vote. And while you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, the fact that you would have to prove you're a U.S. citizen will have the invariable effect of people who are eligible not voting. Especially older people who can't find their passports or birth certificates or whatever it is to prove eligibility. So, a federal appeals court has ruled that states cannot require proof of citizenship during voter registration. Now, of course, if that gets appealed up to the U.S. Supreme Court with the way things are right now, it's a little unclear whether or not they would uphold that or rule against it. But at least as of now, a federal appeals court has given a decision which is based in reason and not making it more difficult for people to vote. Because the reality is, it needs to be easier for people to vote, not more difficult. Because apparently, Trump believes that the more difficult it is, the better it is for him. So it's a good case. Now, the Supreme Court has declined to revisit the expanded public charge rule among the coronavirus pandemic. So, earlier this year, the Supreme Court ruled to allow Trump's administration the expanded public charge rule to go into effect while litigation proceeds. And then on April 24th, they announced that they are declining to revisit the issue in light of the pandemic. So, what that means as of right now is the new public charge rule does expand the type of public assistance that USCIS can consider a public charge determination, including food stamps, housing vouchers, Medicaid. So it's not a good case that that the Supreme Court didn't take it up, but because they specifically made it, the reasoning they didn't take it up based on the coronavirus pandemic, assumably if this does get over in the near future, the Supreme Court would be petitioned again to take it up, since the very condition upon which they didn't want to go into it further won't exist any further. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And then there was another item which Trump did earlier, which changed the way that military personnel can become and apply for naturalization. So, a military naturalization was used to be an expedited way, a very easy way, and a way that benefited and basically gave preference to persons in the military. And what Trump did was take all that expedited process away, made it more difficult, and it actually caused about a 75% drop in military naturalization applications. So, on April 24th, U.S. troops filed a class action lawsuit against being blocked from filing an expedited naturalization process. And the bottom line is, anyone who would have qualified had served honorably. Would have to get a certification from the Pentagon that they did serve honorably and so forth. Again, I can't tell you how this lawsuit is going to turn out, but it's a good lawsuit, and it's a fair one if it prevails, in that there's no rational basis for Trump to have taken away the expedited process for these people who serve our country, and who were given the benefit of expedited naturalization. And then, in regards to the coronavirus, unfortunately, there were two ICE guards in Louisiana in the detention facility there that did die based upon contracting the virus. So there's all kinds of issues with the way they're holding the kids and the way they're processing the people there. Is sort of a hotbed for the virus, and I know that suits will be filed to get bond and to release the people as it comes forward. So that more or less is the immigration update for today. If you like the video, click like, subscribe, and more on the coming videos. Thank you.